Blessed be everyone, and today I'm going to run you through the Wiccan Rites of Passage. But before I do, if you're new to the channel, hi, I'm Sandra from MysteryWitchSchool.com. If you want to become Wiccan or you want to know more about Wicca, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss any videos. The Wiccan Rites of Passage are simply celebrations of the various stages of life that people go through. It's a way of honouring life, essentially. And of course, at the end of it, with the last rite of passage, it's honouring the dying process or the death process. So the first stage of the rites of passage is when children come into the world as babies, and that's called Wiccaning. Now, unlike some other religions, a Wiccaning doesn't mean that you're trying to force that child into your religious beliefs. It's just simply a blessing and welcoming them into a Wiccan framework. Now, of course, they have a choice as they get older as to whether they want to keep in that framework or not, because Wicca isn't a religion of people that forces beliefs onto other people. We certainly don't believe that we're the only ones who have access to the truth, or that anything bad's going to happen to you if you don't become Wiccan. And we certainly don't believe in proselytizing. So it's a choice. But we like to honour life, and we also want to bless the child and make sure that the child has protection and the blessings and a celebration for welcoming them in here to planet Earth as a human being, because they've got hopefully a long road to travel, and you want to make sure that it starts off sacred and it starts off on the right foot, so to speak, because life is hard. And we know that child is going to go through all sorts of trials and tribulations, as well as really great stuff as they mature through life. So Wiccaning is simply welcoming the child, blessing the child, and naming the child as well. The next one is Handfasting. So this one uses the Celtic tradition of tying the palms together of a couple who are meeting to marry. So it's a marriage ceremony, and it involves tying the wrists together to symbolize the union of two people. Now, in Wicca, traditionally, it only lasted a year and a day, because traditionally in Wicca it was believed that marriage vows shouldn't necessarily be for life, that they really should only be for as long as love lasts. So you would find that back in the day they would only last for a year and a day. Now that's changed, of course. People are getting married for longer than that. For marriages, of course, if you want it legal, you do need to find somebody who can legally marry you. There are Wiccan marriage celebrants out there now, or pagan marriage celebrants out there. If you can't find one, there are non-pagan, non-Wiccan celebrants out there who are quite happy to work with you within the Wiccan framework and come up with a legal way of working within a Wiccan ritual and a Wiccan circle to do the marriage ceremony. So don't think that because you can't find a Wiccan celebrant that you can't find a celebrant who's flexible in their spiritual ideas to be able to work with you. The next one is the crossing the bridge. So that's the last one. It's basically the funeral rites. So it is where you honour the person's life at the other end, opposite to the Wiccaning, and you help them move on, and you basically celebrate the transition from life to the next world. So it's not seen as a bad thing in Wicca, death. It's just merely a transition back to our original source, really, back to what we are originally, and it's celebrated as well. There are other lesser rites which aren't necessarily formal, and you probably won't find them in any books on Wicca, but some families do practice it, or some covens will honour it, depending on, of course, the person. And it's generally more in families that this is done. It shares the idea with all Indigenous cultures of celebrating the maturing of somebody going from childhood into adulthood, and also celebrating the changes that the body goes through during this time. And particularly for girls and women, it's particularly important because we have had a past of disrespect towards the female menstrual cycle, menopause, and those various cycles seen by some religions as being dirty, unclean, evil. And because of all of the pressures on young people at the moment to look a certain way, there can be a lot of trauma around the changing body and what's going on with the body at that time. So it's important to actually honor it and see it as something to honor and something to respect, and that it's merely a transition and that it's sacred to the goddess to go through these things. So it's not seen as a bad thing. It's not seen as being a nuisance. It's not seen as being a curse or any of those things. So some families, if the girl is willing and wants to celebrate it too, the women in that family will celebrate with that girl in some way. It's generally the women that celebrate it. The men generally don't get involved in these celebrations. It's generally done with the women. And it's just a way of welcoming her into womanhood and also to let her know, hey, it's okay. It's nothing bad. The next one for women, of course, would be menopause, and that's another thing that can be seen as being a bad thing in our culture, because women over 45 or over 40 are basically seen as invisible. We are invisible in our Western culture because we value youth so strongly when it comes to appearance. So I think it's important, again, for women to get together and celebrate that coming into crone, coming into the wisdom, coming into that aspect of the goddess. Because this is how we honor the feminine. We honor the feminine by honoring all of these manifestations of the feminine. And we don't see any of them as being evil or dirty or wrong or bad. They're simply manifestations of the feminine. And the same too with the masculine. If you're celebrating when a boy starts coming into manhood with the voice cracking and those kinds of changes that he's going to see in his body. Men getting together and actually celebrating that in some way. Men can celebrate coming into the sage of wisdom, moving into that part of adulthood too. It's something that, these things are something that should be celebrated and encouraged and not seen as being negative, which we've been seeing these things as negative for such a long time. We don't respect the elderly. We don't respect the wisdom that they could have. We don't respect the changes. And that comes from a whole history of stuff relating to religion and spirituality and the attitudes towards women. So they're the rites of passage, plus a few added things that some groups will also engage in to celebrate life. Wicca is progressive religion, but it does have a structure, and the structure helps you learn how to connect with yourself, how to connect with deity, how to connect with spirit, and how to connect with the bigger picture. And that's often, I think, the place a lot of people struggle with, is knowing how to do that. So that's why I have the Mystery Witch School, is to help people learn Wicca in a structured way. If you want to know how to structure your own learning and maybe move forward into a course structure, do download my free video, How to Start Your Witchcraft Practice. It actually just goes through a step-by-step process that you can use to either study on your own, and also will show you how you can study more formally as well. So do download that if you're interested in taking Wicca to that level where you're really wanting to make a difference in your life in a Wiccan way. If you like the video, hit the like button, share it with your friends, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Blessed be.